Good afternoon and welcome to this live. With myself, I'm Ruth Benny from Top Schools. This is our regular Thursday afternoon live. No agenda this time, but we do have an agenda and we do have a special guest for next week. So thank you. We're doing lives regularly every Thursday at 6 p.m. So now my WhatsApp is going. I have received some comments from WhatsApp. Thank you very much. And a question from Rosa. Thank you for your question. We'll get to that in a moment. If you have anything to ask me, ask in the comments below and I will get to it. So for today, I just wanted to do a little bit on family values. We had an event on Saturday just past at the Marriott, which was the Standards International Schools Festival. And it's just so interesting to meet so many families on one day and so many interesting conversations. And the things I think about at night when I can't get to sleep, and I'm thinking about what the conversations all had in common. And one of the things that they all had in common was that the parents, I believe a lot of parents are starting to try to identify names of schools too early. We actually want to take them back a number of steps to really help them understand what they want. What do they really want? To quote the Spice Girls. So it was an interesting afternoon. I had conversations with parents of children ranging from 3 months old up to sort of about 13, 14, 15 years old. And I think it's a really important exercise, especially as new parents, especially as parents of a young child, to really go back before you even start to think about names of schools, or everyone says to you like GSIS or, whatever, ESF, just let's try to eliminate the noise a little bit and really try to understand what you as parents, what you value, where what kind of humans are you? You've lived already 20, 30, 40 something years that have led you to this point in your life as a new parent or as a relatively new parent. So I've come up with 4 fit factors to have a chat between the parents. If there are 2, if there are not 2 parents, really have a chat with someone that you really trust. With these 4 fit factors. So the 4 factors are what your child learns, how your child learns, the social environment in which your child learns, and then the practical matters. And again, a lot of parents do start with the practical matters, but we're going to leave those until last. So what your child learns. Now, this could be the core academic program in the school. The curriculum is definitely a part of that. But I think the best example of that in recent years and months and days is the drift away from local schools to schools that don't teach things like the national security law, some religious or political content that that parents are seeking to avoid. So the nitty-gritty of what your child learns is the core academic program. Important to evaluate. I hope that you would agree. The second fit factor is how. How does your child learn? So recent examples is the curriculum definitely is a part of this too. And if you've attended one of my talks, I will show often a slide which talks about Bloom's taxonomy of learning, where a local school is really only seeking to support a child to remember stuff, not even to understand it, often, unfortunately, whereas a modern education system, our private international schools, are seeking to bring children up to higher order thinking skills, where remembering it is not that important. It's about analyzing it and evaluating it and effectively, at the end of the day, creating solutions to complicated problems. So that's how your child learns. Tech is also a big part of this. Different schools have different approaches to how much tech they bring into the classroom. And we've had some interesting conversations with parents around that as well. So those are the two first forfeit factors. What does your child learn, the core academics, and how do they learn, the style of learning, if you like. There's a lot more to it, of course. I can only go into the highlights just now. The third fit factor is the social environment or the community or the culture. And so a lot of this is actually looking at how you fit in with the other families in the school, with the other, how, yeah, how do you fit in? Are you like the other parents? How involved would you like to be? Does a school allow you to be as involved as you would like to be? Um, and some things like we notice when we go on school tours is just how the children are behaving around the campus would inform you as to the social norms and some of the culture, the characteristics of the culture of the school. And the last and the final fit factor are practical matters. And unfortunately, a lot of parents go to these first, but I would say don't do that. Go to them last. Bus, uniform, lunch, and fees. Don't eliminate a school too early because it is apparently expensive, because there are lots and lots of bursaries and scholarships, and obviously it's a consideration, it's a major consideration. Things like the calendar. We're having a chat with a family that were looking at Australian International School, which operates a very different calendar to almost all of the other schools. The French International School, their calendar is skew with. The age cutoff. So these are the practical matters. So I hope that helps. If you are thinking of considering, you are considering a school for your child, have a chat with your co-parent or a family member that you trust or a friend, and consider the four fit factors. Who are you as a family? What do you really value? And see if that's a match with the school. We're building out some tools to provide that will help you to do that. So I hope that's a little bit useful. If you have any questions at all related to Hong Kong schools, please do type them in the comments. And if you type them after, if you're watching this on replay and you would like to type a comment, I will definitely answer it there as well. So one question that came in, actually, let me just check. My WhatsApp is going crazy. Okay, the question that came in from Rosa, thank you, Rosa, and hope you're listening. How do you determine best fit playgroups? How do you work backwards in terms of kindergarten playgroups if the aim is to raise a bilingual child? So the main question is, how do you determine best fit playgroups? So first thing to say is there's no connection to the kindergarten or the primary school that you're looking to enter a few years down the line. There's no official connection. They don't have any affiliation or agreement in place. And I imagine that's why you're asking, Rosa, because it's a bit more difficult to identify. So go to the four fit factors and see if you appreciate what your child learns, how they learn, the environment in which they learn, and whether it works for you practically. So let me come to your second part, which is raising a bilingual child. So often asked, it's going to be more about your home language and where you see the deficit, and to quantify the deficit in one of the languages. So if you're looking to, the most common scenario, you're looking to have your child bilingual in Mandarin and English. If another consideration, are you also looking to have your child proficient in reading and writing both Chinese and English? They're not the same thing, actually. And so we're talking about playgroup. I'll use myself as an example. I often do. So We had no Mandarin in our house. We still pretty much have no Mandarin at home, but wanted our children to be bilingual. So from about 4 months old, I was taking my eldest daughter, and did the same with my son, to a playgroup that was entirely in Mandarin. Now that was only probably what, twice a week for an hour, so it's not much, not enough. And as the children get older, we seek to increase their exposure to the language that is lacking in their life, which in our case was Mandarin. Always looking for balance. There's a statistic that is not mine. It is 25% of your child's waking hours should be in the minor language if your child is to be successful in acquiring that language naturally. So if you do the maths, and let's say your child is in a playgroup, 2 to 3 times a week, and then they go to pre-nursery and they're there, half a day, and they're learning both in English and Mandarin. If you do the maths, most of the time it doesn't equate to 25% of the child's waking time. So you will always be seeking to engineer the balance. I hope that's helpful, Rosa. Sorry. How do you work backwards? It's not easy. It's not easy, but definitely go with your gut. Visit the playgroups. One more tip for playgroups is they are commercial entities. They run as businesses. They are going to seek to have you do potentially 3 times a week once your child is about 12 months. You don't have to do that. What you could do is do 3 different playgroups once a week so that you can get a little bit more familiar with their style and what your child is learning and how they're learning, etc., before you actually make a decision to focus maybe on 1 or even 2, because maybe one playgroup doesn't provide everything that you need. So I hope that's helpful, Rosa. Thank you for your question. Hello, Casey. Thank you for your question. Thanks for listening. Are all international schools having priority on foreign passport holders? Did you see the news this week? If I have foreign passport, but my child is not yet applied, I have a local ID card. Is it possible to count as non-local? Okay, thank you for your question. Yes, by definition, an international school has an obligation, and it varies from school to school. They have a service agreement with the education department to enroll. Um, the majority of students will be holding a foreign passport. That's by definition. So not all the schools that we interact with, that we place children in, are technically international. You're going to want to check that, Casey. Sometimes they say that they are because that's how we all generally kind of think of them, but on paper they might be private and not international at all. But if they are international, and there's a list, if you go to I'll post the link afterwards. There's a list of true international schools as defined by the education department. So yes, they all have a quota from 70% upwards, 70 to 98%. So one school shot themselves in the foot and has one campus that they're supposed to enroll 98% of the children with a foreign passport. Let me clarify what that means. A child with a foreign passport is potentially a child that also has a local passport. So a child that has a Hong Kong passport, and I don't know in what order they applied for these passports, anyway, all I need to know is how many passports does a child have, and if they have Hong Kong or mainland, we ask, do you have another passport? And if they do, that's good news, because the school can also classify them as the other. So let's say they have a Hong Kong SAR passport and a Canadian passport. Any school they apply to that's international will prefer to classify them as Canadian child. Therefore, they are an international student, or non-local, sorry, in the education department we'll talk about non-local, even though they're local, they're both, right? But for this purpose, and it's very strange, they can actually, it depends on the school. So the school will prefer, an international school will prefer to classify them as non-local. This is a Canadian child, job done. Okay, that helps with their quota. And so your question is, your child hasn't yet applied due to COVID. Not sure that that's a valid excuse, Casey. Get that application in now. So you only have a local ID card. Now, don't confuse non-local student with an ID card. The ID card is resident status. So again, I'll use myself as an example. My children were born in Hong Kong as permanent residents. The day they were born, they were permanent residents. They were also international because they had a foreign passport. So depending on the school that they went to, if they went to an international school, the international school will prefer to classify them as British because they have a British passport. The private independent school that they go to may also prefer to classify them as British, but they have the option to classify them as local as well because they have a permanent, they had their permanent residency established at birth. So don't confuse nationality, passport with ID card. They're kind of separate. So if your child does not yet have a foreign passport, you have no choice but to put down whatever passport they do have and apply. There are instances where you can apply, like if they're eligible and if you have any documentation to say that you have submitted the passport, we can use that. And sometimes a residence card can work as well. But apply for a passport if your child is eligible, but I wouldn't necessarily suggest that you use that to delay your application any further. You can always update the school. Let's say you apply as a Hong Kong national, you later your child is eligible for a Canadian passport and that is granted, you then update the school and you ask them to change in their system to change the child's nationality to be a Canadian. That's also possible. So thank you for your question, Casey and Rosa. And for those of you that are listening on replay, go ahead and ask your questions. So we talked about the 4 fit factors. I hope that was useful. And I'm looking to invite a qualified psychologist, counselor to talk more about that. And we're building that out. Next week, I have a guest. And that guest will be talking about early literacy skills and phonics. So if that's of interest to you, you know where and when. Every Thursday at 6 p.m. on Facebook Live, on YouTube Live, on LinkedIn Live. We are live everywhere. And I will confirm that guest's name and bio very, very shortly. If you would like to come on and talk with me about some aspect of parenting, international schooling, education in Hong Kong, I'm very happy to talk with you about that. And yeah, just you know where to find me, get in touch. So I think we'll leave it there for now. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for watching live. Thank you for watching on replay. I've been Ruth from Top Schools, and I'll see you next week at the same time, 6 o'clock on Thursday next week. Okay, bye for now.